Hello and welcome. We're going to be talking tonight about a very important and a very practical topic. So get out your pen and paper. We're going to be talking about elder law and about planning for our future. This is something even, and I think our attorney will explain this further, but even pretty young people should be considering this because of eventualities. So I want to introduce you to Margaret Barrett, who is my guest tonight. She is a woman who founded the Safe Harbor estate law firm back in 2013.
Yep.
Right, and she works with all kinds of issues related to elder law, and I just want to read a few of them off because you'll get a better feel for our topic tonight. She talks about estate planning, about medical assistance planning, about planning for incapacity or chronic illness, probate, of course, trust administration, appointment of guardianship or conservatorships, and premarital agreements and postmarital. And she told me recently that a lot of people over 70 are getting remarried, and then the complexities of merging households and so forth comes into play. So it's going to be an interesting half hour here. Welcome again, and it's great to have you here.
Thank you, Mary. It's an honor to be here.
I know that you have a quote that you and I were kind of enjoying thinking about that I thought made so much sense, and I want to have you share it with the viewers about our topic tonight. What did you say, and can you restate that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. What I like to say is that we hope for the best, but we plan for the worst. Because in life, we never know when some rough waters might come up, some unexpected problems, usually when we least expect them. So if we plan ahead, they can go a lot smoother and things can go better for us and our loved ones.
And when you say plan ahead, you mean in a formal way, probably with an attorney, right?
Yes, I do. There are other ways that are important, but we help you with the legal side. And it's a lot broader, I think, than most people think.
I think there is a natural tendency on so many people's part to not want to do this, to kind of resist. I'll do it later. I'll do it this summer. Is that something you find when you do have people come in, your clients, that they've put off doing this?
We do. A lot of times people will come in and they'll feel bad that they put it off that long. But we always encourage them. It's great to take that first step because 75% of people don't have an updated estate plan, for example. And we know it's easy to put off, to procrastinate, to do other things. And a lot of times people don't like to think about these topics, about getting ill or passing away. So there's many reasons to avoid it, but it's also really important to protect your loved ones and your family and ensure that you get good care. There's many rewards if you do take those steps.
I think we've all been aware that Prince did not have a will.
Yes.
And that kind of brought home the necessity. And here he was in his 50s, and so it's important. I guess we know that, and yet we often resist doing anything.
And when someone famous does that, then often we'll get a few clients after that, like we did for Prince, and said, well, I don't want to be like Prince. So it is kind of a good wake-up call for people.
That's a good way to put it. When you say 75% of people do not have an estate plan, would that include then about that same percentage would not have a will?
Let's see, I think a little over, about 50% of people have a will, but a lot of times it isn't up to date.
Oh, okay.
So it's 75% of people don't have a complete updated estate plan. They might have one document like a power of attorney or a will or something, but to have the whole complete updated documents, that's only 1 in 4.
Wow. What is the most important thing if people want to just start gradually and get more thorough as they go along? What's the one most important thing we should have? Is it a will? Is it a power of attorney? What would you say?
Well, okay, that's a little bit hard to answer, Mary, because I don't know what will happen. But if a person is going to lose capacity before they pass away, which is fairly common, then a power of attorney is really important to appoint someone to handle your finances and legal matters. But similarly, also a healthcare directive is important, and depending on the situation, might be more important. So you have someone to choose your healthcare. If you don't have those documents in place, your loved ones may have to go to court to get appointed by the court, which is very time-consuming, a hassle, and costs thousands of dollars. So those are documents anybody over 18 need power of attorney, and I would say healthcare directive
So over
too.
18.
Yes.
See, that's something I don't think most of us think about at that young age.
Yes, we have an over 18 package. We called it our graduation package for a while because it's a good thing to get for students going away to college. If your student gets sick in college, you're going to need a power of attorney and healthcare directive so you can help them.
So the power of attorney isn't something that is forever and ever. It's for when the person can't make decisions on their own.
Some are good as long as you're alive, and some are only good when you lose capacity or the ability to make your own decisions. So there are different kinds, but they're only good while you're alive.
So is that something that, why would you want to have one that was permanent? Because what if you were very, very ill and then you got better? I mean, you wouldn't want that to carry.
Yeah, that's a
over,
good
would you?
question. Well, actually, the form we do the most is permanent. It's a statutory short form power of attorney. It's the most common one in Minnesota, and it's required by law to be accepted by everybody. So that's why it's popular, and that one is permanent. So you need to appoint people that you really trust, who are only going to use it for your benefit when you want them to use it.
So if you, let's say you were in a horrible accident and you were unable to make any decisions, your power of attorney steps in, does it for you,
Yes.
and then you get better, you can say, I don't need you anymore. I want to be in charge again.
Yes, yes, you can
Okay.
definitely do that.
Okay.
But it's important to pick people you trust because these are abused. You can hear about that in the news.
Sure.
And so there's things we do to try to minimize the chances of that.
So the healthcare directive, then let's talk a little bit more about that right now. That is for when you're ill and you need someone to weigh in terms of what kind of medical procedures are going to be necessary.
Right, so first of all, the doctor has to determine that you can't decide yourself. So that's a protection for you, that the doctor gets to decide. So then you get to pick who's going to make your decisions and give them some guidance about what they're going to decide in the document.
And that's where you fill out the 7 wishes is one common form.
That's a common form.
There are several options, aren't there?
There are several options. So when people come to my office, I always like to look at what they have, and then I can tell them pros and cons if maybe it's not up to date. So then a lot of times they might redo it differently with me, and we'll maybe incorporate some of the 7 wishes. But it's nice to have an elder lawyer or an estate planning lawyer look at it.
And with that, you look at possibilities, don't you? If you couldn't breathe on your own, would you want a ventilator, that kind of thing, right?
Yes, you can go into that much detail. So we don't go into great detail with clients, and we encourage them to work with their doctors on that level of detail because we're not medical experts, but that can be part of it.
And usually you've got more than one person representing you, don't you? Or
when
there's
you're
a
naming,
possibility when you name a person to step in for you.
yes, that's a very good point. So on all of our documents, I like people to name at least 2 or maybe 3. And then I say your document has a longer shelf life because it'll probably last 20, 30 years and include maybe some people younger than you if you're getting old. Well, we're all getting older, I guess, but as you get older. So that's a very good idea to add people to your list.
So and that's something you can revise and change at any point, right?
Yeah, you can revise and change them. And I think that's a good point because once you get an updated estate plan, it might not need much tweaking, but if it does, it's usually not much hassle and it's not very expensive.
Okay. So review it every, 4 or 5 years?
I say every 3 years. We like to keep in touch with our clients every year and then at least sit down with them maybe every 3 years and have a conversation.
And just be sure it's up to
Yep, just check
date.
in and see how things are. A lot of times they'll ask a question and we'll say, no, you don't need to update for that. We're good. We'd rather stay in touch because people have a tendency to get their plan updated and put it on the shelf for 25 years, and then it does get out of date.
Sure, it would. And a lot of people, I think now are thinking, well, I could go online and probably do some of this myself, the do-it-yourself approach. And what's not good about that, and what's good about it? Is it workable for some people, or is it dangerous?
I think it's dangerous.
Do you?
It may work from time to time. I don't hear those stories. But I do know that what we do is sit down with people and look at your whole situation, your finances, your health, your family, and work with you to craft a plan that's particular to you. And I've seen some disasters come out of the online forms where they're not digging as deep. It's not customized to Minnesota maybe, and it's not customized to that particular client. So we've had some messy situations caused by that.
So don't do it is kind of
I don't recommend it. I really
the overall advice. I want to talk some about medical assistance and Medicare. I think a lot of people assume that if they've got Medicare, they're going to be covered for nursing home care.
Right.
And it's really a myth, isn't it?
It is a myth and a very common one. So Medicare will cover up to 100 days, excuse me. The first 20 days it covers full, and after that it covers a fraction. The main payer of long-term care in this country is medical assistance from a government perspective. That's a federal and state combined program. In Minnesota, it's called medical assistance and it's administered by the counties. If you run out of money paying for your long-term care, it's medical assistance that you'll apply for to pay for most of it.
And with Medicare, when you say the first 100 days, then people are paying out of pocket or have long-term care insurance possibly.
That's right.
For the bulk of it.
Right, and long-term care insurance usually covers part of it, but not all of it. So even if you have that, that's great. But you're not done planning for long-term care. So yes, you're going to be paying some for private pay out of your own pocket.
And it's expensive. What's your latest number in terms of how much a nursing home costs each year?
Well, it can easily cost up to $120,000 a year. And I have a client right now, he's paying $15,000 a month, so that's $160,000.
Wow.
That's the highest I've seen. But it's not unusual to get up to $120,000 a year.
So people's savings can be used up fairly quickly.
Very quickly, because let's say if a couple has $500,000, men typically need care 1 to 2 years, and women an average of 3 to 4 years for long-term care. So you can see that $500,000 for a couple could go quickly, and they could be applying for medical assistance.
And some of the statistics I've seen on the savings that people have right now in our country are pretty hard to think about much security with, because people do not have a lot of savings on average, do they?
No, they don't. I think it's kind of scary. And people sometimes wonder how much they need for retirement. And I would say a lot depends on your income and your lifestyle, what you're spending, and your health. So it's kind of hard to say, but sometimes I've heard one person having $1 million, they might be set pretty well, but it's really going to depend on these factors, and it's good to work with a financial advisor on it. The good thing is some people, they're at a point where they can't add to their savings, and they don't have what they would like to have. We can help them as well as helping the people who have a large nest egg. Either way, we can help people qualify for medical assistance and protect whatever assets they have.
Yeah, that's something I'm sure people's ears perk up, because that's, I think everyone wants to be able to save as much as they can to pass on to their kids or their loved ones, or a charity that's a favorite charity. But Can you give us an example of a way that you can help people protect assets when you still are possibly looking then at medical assistance?
Sure.
Because you really have to go down to what, $3,000
Yes.
savings, which is very
That's
low
not much, right? For a single person, 3,000.
to qualify for medical assistance.
That's right. So there's kind of two separate things we look at. If you might apply within 5 years, then you're in a 5-year look back period, and there's fewer things you can do. If you have more than 5 years, you can actually give away a chunk of money if you want. Okay, if we're into the 5-year look back period, we look at things like prepaying for your funeral. You might be paying your kids for care. There's certain rules to follow, things like that. We can do some things more creative to protect real estate or assets by maybe gifting a large sum to children, but then using another about equal amount of money to buy an annuity that is going to cover the gifting problem that creates. I know that's pretty technical, and it is pretty technical, but people are surprised that we can still, within the 5-year look-back period, maybe make a gift to kids to either thank them for the work they've done caring for the parents, and a lot of times the children are willing to keep that money to benefit the parents if it's needed.
So look back is from the point that they enter a nursing home?
No, it's from when they apply for medical assistance.
Okay, right.
So it says on the form, in the last 60 months, did you make any, they're called uncompensated transfers, what you and I would call a gift. Something you gave away and you didn't get an equal amount back for, that's required to be disclosed right there.
So if you give something away in this 5-year period, the receiver has to give it back to you?
That's one way to fix it, and they have to give it all back, every penny, not half of it.
Otherwise, what if they've spent it, Margaret?
This is what happens. So we have people come to us and said, you know, they handled their money reasonably and well their whole lives. But when you're in the 5-year look-back period, it's like all the rules changed and you didn't know, right? So I didn't know I couldn't give this away to my child, and now I'm in trouble. That's where
I was planning to live a healthy life a lot longer.
That's right.
You know?
Right. Sometimes we have pretty young people who suddenly have a stroke or fall down the stairs and get injured, and all of a sudden they're in a spot they didn't expect to be in. So especially if they still have some money left, we can do something like buy an annuity that's going to pay for their care during the period medical assistance won't pay because of that gift. So we can do this kind of thing proactively, and we can do it kind of reactively to correct a problem that's come to us. So the sooner people come, the better, because the more money they have left, the more options we have for them, the more we can help them legally, ethically, and morally to get the medical assistance coverage they need, but still protect themselves and their assets.
This sounds very important and intriguing for people, because it's very, very hard to work hard all your life, save as much as you can, and then have it, you know, disappear so fast.
Yes, it's very hard, but there are some things that are allowed for you to do that'll benefit you and your family. And so we want to help people take advantage of those and get educated so they can decide what works best for them.
We only have about 8 minutes left, and I'm looking at my notes here because there's so many things I want to ask you about. Can you talk just a little bit about when guardianship and conservatorship are necessary?
Sure.
It sounds like something an elder person would not want to have a guardian or conservator, but when do you use each of those sort of in the most common way?
Sure. So, right, everyone wants to make their own decisions,
Right.
but there's a good chance any of us might not be able to. So if you don't have the power of attorney and healthcare directive I talk about, and you lose capacity, then your loved ones are going to need to go to court and have a guardian appointed. That takes the place of kind of your healthcare agent. It's called the guardian over the person making healthcare decisions and things like that. The conservator replaces essentially the attorney in fact who's appointed in the power of attorney. So they're going to handle finances and legal matters. And a lot of times you just have them both appointed and they might be the same person. But this costs thousands of dollars to get them
Does it?
appointed. And then they have to make reports to the court, and you have to get discharged from the court. So I say the power of attorney and the healthcare directive is really inexpensive insurance.
Right, it would be, and it prevents needing then the conservatorship or guardianship.
It should prevent it, yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's a good connection with the two topics here, isn't it?
Yes, that's how they work together.
Yeah.
We can help on both ends, but preventing problems is really rewarding.
I bet. I bet people are very relieved when they get this sort of set down and settled. What about probate? We hear so much about probate, and people fear probate, and it's not always something, though, that people need to deal with, is it?
No, sometimes people pass away and they can avoid probate. Usually it's because they have a good estate plan. Sometimes if they don't have many assets, things are simple, no real estate, they manage to avoid probate. And probate is simply the court process which transfers assets from the person who died to other people, because we know we can't take it with us. So how do they get transferred? If it's not by beneficiary designation or joint ownership, it's going to go through a will or trust, and that's the probate process. Wills are designed for probate. Most people don't know that. You can sometimes avoid probate with a will with good planning and simple estate kind of situation. A trust is really designed to avoid probate, so those should avoid probate.
So if you don't have a trust, though, you have a high chance of having probate, whether you have a will or not?
Yes, and when we meet with people one-on-one, we can kind of assess, if you don't have any real estate, if you have one son you're leaving your estate to, if things aren't very complicated, you have a better chance of avoiding probate. If you have more complicated situation, you're leaving your house to 8 kids and you have a cabin in Wisconsin, like this is not going to avoid probate very well. So it kind of depends on the situation.
Okay, that makes sense. What's your assessment of the security for people when they think about Social Security and they think about Medicare? We hear some really doom and gloom statistics. We're going to run out funds, et cetera. Working in elder law, what's your take on it?
Well, my understanding is they think they have enough money till about 2030. That's only 11 years away. And then they're planning
for Social Security?
For Social Security, yes,
Okay.
that's right. And so then they're planning to reduce it to 70 to 80% of benefits, and they'll run out in 10 more years. But I don't know what will happen between now and then. We have known for years it needs to be corrected. The problem is it's not politically popular. No one wants to.
Neither Republicans nor Democrats want to tackle it, do they?
No one does. So I'm not sure what will happen, and I can't control it. So we're just planning for what we can plan for, I guess.
So younger people, though, are at higher risk for not counting on Social Security at the level we've got it now. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think that's really true because the baby boom generation is aging, the birth rate is lower, and people are living longer. There's way more elderly people now. So right now in our country, for the first time, there's more elderly than under 18. And in 2035, there will be more elderly than any other group.
Wow.
So I think being an elder law lawyer, it's a little selfish almost. I mean, I'm trying to make things better for when I'm aging too.
Right, you've got a vested interest, right?
Right, what's going to happen?
Right, yeah, the population shift is fascinating. I'm getting a signal that we want to give a resource for you. And so I know we are going speedily through a lot of complex things here.
Yes.
If you want to learn more or want to know how to get a hold of Margaret, she's got a great website, and that's the starting point. And it is www.safeharbourestatelaw.com, the name of her firm, safeharbourestatelaw.com. And you can reach her that way. We've got about 2 minutes left. What about Medicare? What's your take on that? How soft or how firm are we going to be leaning on Medicare, do you think, with security?
Well, I think it's similar to Social Security. I mean, I'm not sure what's going to happen. We can't continue the way we are. It's going to have to change. And I think the timelines, I don't remember them off the top of my head, but I think they're pretty similar to Social Security is what I recall. So we'll really need to watch that in the future. But remember, I work mostly with medical assistants too, and it's a similar concern for that.
Is it?
Yes, I mean,
Okay,
it's
now, I've not
federally,
been reading about that.
well, it's federally and state funded, both.
Sure.
And so as these care costs go up, it's something government is grappling with at all the levels.
Well, yeah, that makes sense, Margaret. So medical assistance, another thing to worry about, right?
Yes, so
And to do planning for. Well, as you said when we first started, hope for the best and plan for the worst,
that's
right?
right, Mary. That's what we're
Right.
here to help people do.
Well, thank you so much for coming
You're
down
welcome.
and helping really inform us all. And I've learned a lot, I'm sure you have too. And it just is very motivating to listen and to think hard about this with you. So thanks.
You're welcome. I appreciate being here.
Thank you for being with us. I'll be back again next week. Until then, have a good week.